going on, everybody? Welcome to the first official Knicks OmniFan Roundtable Conversation. My name is Matt Brooks.
I'm Jennifer Gordon.
I'm Jazz.
I'm Dylan. What's up?
And together we are Knicks OmniFan. For our first Roundtable Conversation, we are looking to the future, I guess, because I think that's what everybody that is a fan of the Knicks is doing. We're going to talk about the 2019 free agency class, about everybody that's available, and go through some players that we think that may be interesting for the team to go after. So I know that you guys are very passionate about a pair of players, so I'll let you guys kind of take off of this.
Right. So Jazz and I, we feel pretty strongly about having Kyrie Irving and Jimmy Butler come to the Knicks. We think that they would be a dynamic duo. They fit right in with Fizz's new system of defensive-minded basketball. They're both dynamic players. They're both defensive-minded players, high basketball awareness, high basketball IQ, with ample experience. And that's why I think they'd be the perfect fit to come to the Knicks.
Yeah, I think the majority of Knicks fans would be in agreement with us. I mean, the hype this offseason about the possibility of them coming and, little social media, things here and there. And, I mean, if those two guys came to MSG, it would just be a whole new face to Knicks basketball as we know it today. So, I mean...
Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys think they'd be a good fit? You guys for it or not?
Well, first off, to just kind of put things in perspective, every summer, teams like the Knicks or the Lakers, they get thrown in rumors for the top free agents.
This is true.
And it's just because those are locations that players would want to live.
Big markets.
Yeah,
Right.
big markets.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these guys have media companies that they're trying to start now. I mean, it makes sense. For these two, though, it's on record that they have wanted to play together for a while. Kyrie's, of course, from the New York area. So the correlation is pretty easy to see. Me personally, I obviously you can't say no. I mean, there's really nowhere to go up from then up from here for the team. They both fit with Porzingis, and I think you can say that for a lot of guys. That just kind of shows you the player that Porzingis is. But I mean, yeah, it's a really nice fit. Jimmy Butler brings that defense, that toughness.
Yes.
He'll be that guy to bring everybody together in the huddle. And then Kyrie Irving, I mean, that's a guy, honestly, criminally underrated just because
what can he do on the court?
He's amazing. He's arguably the best, if not the best, isolation scorer in the game. Maybe next to like a guy like Kevin Durant, who I know we're going to talk about in a little bit. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't be excited about it. And they would be a top 3, top 2 team in the East. I think hands down. I'd have them over Philly, and they're right neck and neck with Boston.
Def.
Yeah, I guess like the issue to talk about with them is that neither of them are just totally unrestricted free agents. Both of them would have to actively decide we don't want to play with the team we currently on
Correct.
now.
That's a very good point.
And take pay cuts. Like, it would be slight pay cuts, but I think both of them will be eligible. I know Jimmy Butler because, if you don't know, I am by nature a Timberwolves fan. Wavering.
We won't hold it against you.
Yeah, wavering. Yeah, I'm a free agent.
we still love them.
Right.
I'm a free agent right now.
We're trying to, bring them over.
My fandom is in free agency right now.
Right.
I might sign with the
Don't
Knicks.
sell your fandom like that.
Oh
like
my
that
God,
Loser.
Yeah, if the Knicks don't spend any money on players next summer, I'm available.
If you give us a team option at the end of your contract, then we'll take you as like a Knicks fan.
I think
the next few years at least, right?
You gotta have a little more.
Lucky we love you, but we don't really do the bandwagon fans. As we know.
Right, either you're a fan before Butler and Irving, or you're not.
Yeah. See, advocating for like if you don't love me at my worst, you shouldn't love me at my best.
Exactly. That's the philosophy of most Knicks fans. Okay. But for Matt, we'll make an exception only because we love him.
Right.
Yeah, but to go back into... So what do you... I think, like, really, for me, we've heard rumors about Jimmy Butler not being happy with management in Minnesota,
Correct.
not being happy with the practices of the younger players on the team, which is interesting, and we don't know what's happening there, but I think he probably would be willing to come here.
I think so, and what you just mentioned speaks to Jimmy Butler's mentality and why I think again he'd be a great fit for New York because he's not here for the mumbo jumbo or the diva attitudes of these new players. Well, not all of them. But a lot of them come into the league with. It's all about glitz and glam and groupie life. But no, it's about basketball and winning a ring.
That's right.
Isn't Kristaps a little bit of a diva? Can we? Look, he's the savior of this city, but
which is yet to be proven. Let's not give him all that credit yet.
Hey,
but I love you, KP.
He was booed on draft night, so I think that was his first introduction into New York, and
set the stage
for him having a little chip on his shoulder.
No, and so it makes him special. But I'm just saying, in terms of the fit between, that's the only thing I could see not working out is
so far.
Well, everything we've heard about Porzingis is he's been set up as kind of the opposite of these former European players like Darko Milicic probably being the most famous, who they grew really big, and then it was like, well, you should totally play basketball, and they were like, sure, whatever. Right. Porzingis, from everything we've heard about his background and his family, he grew up, in a basketball obsessed family.
Yes,
he's been dreaming about this his whole life. I haven't heard, and in all the frankly, let's call it drama, all the drama,
it's been drama.
That with Porzingis in the organization. I haven't heard one word about his work ethic. I haven't heard one word.
And he's good at defense.
That's an amazing point.
He's also good and an excellent defender.
Yes,
excellent.
And unlike Karl Anthony Towns, we do not have any evidence that he stays up all night playing Fortnite the night before a game. But and that's probably Jimmy Butler's main problem, I would think. So as long as that's
understandable,
Dylan blowing up spots. Well, either again.
Yeah, you know, my boy Porzingis is at the club though. I don't want to.
KP. I think
he has a good time. I think he has a good time.
Of course he does. All these guys.
When you come to New York, it's that's part of the draw. It's the New York lifestyle. But
you have to be focused. It takes a special kind of player to play in New York because you have to balance the two.
Exactly.
You can't get
and lots of people are not able to do it.
Exactly, because we know about anything is possible.
Exactly.
Anything is possible. The thing though is that what's nice about those two is that that they're both really competitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jimmy Butler has dragged some awful teams to the playoffs. Kyrie Irving really took that Celtics team by kind of by the horns essentially, and was like a leader that nobody really expected.
Yes.
There was a ton of interviews saying he was like the best leader since Garnett and stuff like that. So I think that's the type of stuff you're looking for is to have those guys. So I can totally see the fit. If they get those two, I would be ecstatic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me it's mostly I could definitely see Jimmy Butler leaving the Timberwolves because he's been vocal that he wasn't happy, but I think the biggest part will be if Kyrie leaves the Clippers. The Celtics, because he has less of a reason to leave. They're a playoff team. They have pieces in place that are signs that they're going to do great things for years to come. Yeah, so he's the one that has less incentive to leave his current team than I think Jimmy Butler. But on the other side, I know that like you said, he's from the New York area, and he was one of the 4 teams that he listed as a team that he wanted to be traded to when he was with Cleveland. So that says a lot.
Do you think they'll come as a package deal? Like if you don't get one, you don't get the other?
That's what I was a little concerned about.
It's a little concerning. Jimmy Butler has definitely been very vocal that he wants to play with Kyrie Irving. Again, like Jazz said, Kyrie is kind of like that wild card. If he leaves his seemingly good situation,
it's amazing. It's an amazing.
It's a pretty ideal situation.
They're going to be the best team in the East for years.
If he comes here and plays with Jimmy Butler, it's going to rise. His value is going to rise exponentially if they are successful.
Right.
Because this is a huge. Boston's no New York. Shout out to Boston, but there's no New York.
Now, what do you guys feel about though their injuries?
Kyrie is concerning. Jimmy Butler, not so much. Jimmy Butler's injuries, I think, are a product of him playing 40 minutes a year. Or not 40 minutes, 40 minutes a game last year.
Right.
Well, but that's the issue. You can't take those minutes back.
Sure, no, I know. But you can at least minimize
them. Yeah, exactly.
A little bit, which is what I think that if you have all those guys, it'll all work itself out.
I
Because
agree. There'll be a lot of talent. We'll be stacked.
yeah, and it'll be better for Kristaps if they have those guys on the roster because him
Exactly.
and Jimmy both need
Exactly.
to
We
play
can
less
spread
minutes.
the love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have some worries though about how you look at how like Derrick Rose has aged. You look at how Joakim Noah has aged. You look at how Luol Deng has aged,
Let's not
and
forget about
and
Derrick
Butler is
Rose.
different. He's different than all those guys, and I was
Yeah.
actually surprised to find out he's still only 28 years old, which is like not that old, but there's miles
Yeah,
on
But
there.
there are miles. He plays a very physical game.
I mean, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think out of the two, in terms of injuries, Kyrie is definitely the more concerning one. I know that he's been, postseason been injured. So that is very concerning because it's if you can play, the first 82 games, without an injury, and then every postseason you're injured, then
what
it's
good
kind
are
of
you,
pointless.
really? It's true.
Sure.
But I have faith. I feel like he's working on his conditioning, and Kyrie's still great. He's in his prime still.
I agree.
and that's what I really want to go after. But we
Yeah.
can move it. Oh, should we move it along?
Well, we haven't seen him post injury though. I mean, that's what I'm.
And that's true.
Well, that's really the issue. Is like if you're talking about, who we should be throwing a lot of money at for, and I think we can agree like probably that first year, even if we did get Butler and Kyrie together, they're probably not quite. And with the Warriors still looking pretty much full strength, maybe like not quite at their prime. Probably that first year they're not immediately
in sync.
in sync. Yeah, they're probably not like immediately the favorites, So you would want to know that there's a few years there.
If it's
to
not a
come.
few left in the tank. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
all right. And so to look at like a similar player, I think like Kemba Walker is a similar player in many respects, in that he's both of them have their defensive issues, but both have like improved a lot as shooters since this started. And Kemba Walker doesn't have the same profile that Kyrie does, but
No, but he's still a great scorer. He's
put up
clutch.
some impressive stats the last few
Absolutely.
years.
I mean,
Matt doesn't agree.
Here's my thing with Kemba Walker is I agree that he does everything that Kyrie does. He's a clutch player. He has some tremendous ball handling. He's a good three-point shooter, but he does everything at a lesser degree.
Yeah.
So it's like, why not go after Kyrie and swing for the fences? You already have a guy like Kristaps on the roster who, speaking of swing for the fences, is a guy that health-wise, I mean, you might it's kind of this is why I should not be a GM, but you already have a risk guy. Why not take more risks and go for Kyrie? I mean, honestly, it raises your ceiling.
I agree. Sure.
We know that Kemba has not made a ton of money so far in his career, but do you think he's that type of personality where he would be willing to take less money?
Yes, he has a great attitude.
I don't know.
He's known. Well, as a matter of fact, it's twofold. He's known for having a great attitude and being very agreeable and coachable, but he has been underrated and underpaid for a few years. So he might be ready to take that upgrade.
Just for reference, we took a look at this, and right before we recorded, he's the 6th highest paid player on the Hornets roster at $12 million a year.
Yeah.
He's under Cody Zeller, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and Bismack Biyombo.
And Batum.
And we always talk about like a player who emphasizes the good of the team over his own salary, his contract.
own ego.
However, he has not made, like, relative to a player of his caliber, he has not made that much money, and he's currently being paid less than like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and Cody Zeller,
Insane.
who are not terrible players, but random NBA players.
Yeah, right.
So I would not fault him for wanting like a full max contract. Which is probably what we have to give him, which is
I think
a good reason why.
I mean,
he's
why
probably
he would not be
not over Kyrie.
Exactly.
Sure, and I think he'll go for it because he's so underpaid. He's I believe he's 27. I know he was a 3-4 year college player. So you have to imagine he's going to be going for a big contract. He's a guy that's been an all-star, I believe, 2 seasons now. So you have to figure that's a guy that's going to be going for a big payday. Versus like other guys, like I know even Kyrie's made way more money than he has. So I would, if anything, I would expect Kyrie to take a hometown discount over Kemba Walker. The question really remains is, what's the market going to be like Kemba Walker? To be
I
honest,
think for Kemba Walker, I think he's a number 2 option for every team because if
I
you
think he's
think
number
about
3.
okay, or number 3
Yeah.
because I mean if you're talking about Kyrie or Kemba, obviously everybody would take I think Kyrie first,
Of course.
So now you're talking about a number 2, a number 3 option, and once those guys are off the table, then that's when, he'll see where he fits in and how much money, whatever teams have left to spend. But if you have to go for one or the other, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. Definitely Kyrie.
And let's not forget, Kemba Walker has also stated that he wants to stay a Hornet for most of his career, if not all of it. So I wouldn't be putting all my eggs in one basket for Kemba Walker.
Sure. We've gone probably about 15 minutes now, and we haven't really addressed the elephant in the room.
Ooh, there it goes.
The character of our trailer that we put together for this entire live show. Yeah. I mean, let's cue it up on the screen.
Cue it up. Oh, there it goes.
There we go. The trailer himself.
We got to talk about Kevin Durant. For me,
that picture makes my eyes bleed.
It's not even split in this room. I'm the only one on the camp of Kevin Durant. Here's my argument for Kevin Durant, and I know this is going to turn into a big discussion. He's the best.
We already had that discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we're gonna hash out again. That's how good of a discussion it was.
We'll try not to physically
jump over table,
explode.
Right.
But we're gonna but go ahead, Matt.
But keep going.
Kevin Durant represents the highest ceiling out of any player in next season's free agent class. He's a perennial top 3 player in the league, and presumably will be a top 3 guy in the next couple of years, maybe even top 2 if LeBron declines, right there with Anthony Davis.
Absolutely.
He also has the benefit of, if he leaves the Warriors and joins a team like the Knicks, who really haven't won in a long time, and it's a franchise that has been looking for a savior of sorts, it really helps his narrative. So that's the reason he would do it. And then the last thing on a lesser note is that his agent, Rich Kleinman, wants to own the Knicks at some point in his life. That's a lesser thing, but
that is lesser, but
that's why this conversation is happening.
You know who else would also like to own the Knicks at some point in his life? His name is Dylan. He lives in Brooklyn currently.
Right. Throw me into that.
We would all have the same.
If we're out here looking for potential people, I would love to throw my hat in the ring.
We can float Dylan's seat.
If you guys are
anything's
okay.
better than Dolan.
Okay,
Dolan or Dylan? I mean, come on.
I'd take Dylan over Dolan.
That's a tough choice.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I mean the obviously let's just establish what is obvious.
Okay.
Obviously, the team is better with Kevin Durant. It is disrespectful to imply anything else.
You can't deny his talent.
Right. Yes. So better with Kevin Durant. Do you think he is the right fit with Kyrie, who he establishes the number 1 target?
Well, here's what. I don't think that we'd be able to secure both KD and Kyrie, so I don't think that they should necessarily be in the same conversation. When it comes to KD, however, I am not for it. I'm not taking away anything about his playing ability. I mean, he's a great athlete. He's a great shooter. We're not talking about that. For me, at least, it's about the man's heart and about his fortitude, his backbone.
Yes.
I don't agree with a player jumping ship and going to a team that beats you in the playoffs the way the Warriors beat the Thunder. I'm just not here for it. That's not the way of... listen, I'm a little old school with it. I grew up on the 90s Knicks, where heart was everything. You left it all out on the court.
That would be like Patrick going to Miami or Indiana.
Yeah. I'm just not here for it. I'm not here for it. And that's just where I stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then to pick up on that, does KD even have the leadership skills to take on that type of role in New York? And the answer is no. The guy couldn't even pick his team for the All-Star break without saying, I wish somebody else would do this for me. I just want to play in the game. Like, who says that? No leader says that.
I agree, and that's actually a really good point because a lot of the statements that he's made in Golden State have really been kind of confusing. Like
confusing is the perfect word. I'm confused by that man.
There's a part of me that thinks that his brash attitude would fit in really well with the New York culture, but then there's that part of me that sees all the statements that he made about, well, I just want to be the best defensive player in the league this year. When it's like, you're not that guy. You're a number one guy on a title team. So that to me says that there is something off with
a disconnect.
Yeah, it's like his perception of himself or his perception of who he should be in this league,
or what he thinks people's perception of him is.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's because of who he's played with throughout his career. It just doesn't quite like he was the darling of OKC, yet he just backed out of that role. It is a really good point to make.
Yeah,
and I have a quote from Kevin Durant. He says, "This is about him being in Golden State. I don't want to have to be the leader. I'm not a leader.
Ooh,
I'm bad at saying stand behind me and follow me. No, I'm not one of those guys."
FOHKD.
That's a quote.
I think you should just like leave the room right now, Matt.
Yeah.
I think
You
it's
can't
pretty
play in
much-
this league and say things like that.
Yeah, no.
Here's my counter.
Ooh, I want to hear
Here's
this.
my
This
counter.
better be good.
Right.
For all of the talk of either the guys that we brought up, whether it be a Jimmy Butler or a Kyrie Irving, or even to a lesser degree a Kemba Walker,
Okay.
why can't you sign KD and one of those guys? Maybe KD isn't the leadership guy, but he's going to be the best player on that team.
Okay,
And that can work. That can really work. We've seen it with Golden State. That team has won championships.
True. I mean,
With
he
him
can be a great role player.
right. Because
very
apparently all he
glorified
wants to be
role
is a role player.
Right.
Apparently.
I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this, but earlier, like a couple years ago, with the Warriors, I remember. I don't know if you remember. Steph was always criticized as like he's not really the traditional leader of that group, like the alpha male.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever that means.
I'm ready to counter it though.
Whether or not the idea of the alpha male is relevant really today, people always said that's Draymond Green. He's the intense one. He's the one who gets everyone hyped up before the game.
Yeah, I would agree.
Stuff like that. Do you think Kevin Durant can just like thrive on being the most talented person and that's good enough?
Here's why I don't think that's enough. We had a very talented player in Carmelo Anthony who, granted, I feel that Carmelo, he took on the role. Granted, he was still on the younger side when he came to the Knicks, but he grew into a leadership position. The statements that KD has made, don't put him in the same category as Steph Curry, because you know what? Steph Curry is a person who doesn't necessarily lead by being super vocal and being one of those extra demonstrative guys. He leads by example.
Right. And
His
he's
work
not saying,
ethic
I'm not a
speaks
leader.
for itself. Exactly. He's not denouncing the role of being a leader like KD has. That's the difference. KD in his mind and his heart is not a leader.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. I don't want that man on my team.
Right. And speaking about his temperament, as you brought up earlier, does he even have the temperament to be able to stay in New York for a longer period of time? Because, I mean, he goes back and forth with fans on social media, back and forth with the media. I mean, I believe he was at one point quoted as saying, if you don't like it, don't watch.
Ooh.
And that was in regards to, people saying, oh, the Cavs versus the Warriors, it wasn't interesting. He just doesn't care.
I kind of like that. That's
That's
a good point.
That won't go over too well with New York fans. I'll tell you that, because
I know.
But I do.
Because I mean, let's go back to Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing had a love-hate relationship with the fans, and he didn't like when the fans criticized him. And KD, I mean, now with the age of social media, it would just go off the charts.
I was going to say, Patrick Ewing didn't have Twitter.
Exactly.
Carmelo Anthony had Twitter. And you may remember when he do you remember when he called that fan like he referred to his glazed donut face, I think, in his
that was classic.
In his denunciation of this man who was talking trash.
This is hilarious. Well,
and I think
that fan probably.
So I'm saying there's a strong tradition in New York of stars.
I mean, trolling is a part of it. You can't just let fans just talk any type of crap and let them get away with it. But KD, he's a little more sensitive than most.
Yeah, more than average, I'd say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think Broadway, KD, the stage is calling you.
Tony Award winner.
But not the Garden, though. Broadway, though.
So this whole leadership role, though, isn't that what
Yes.
you'd want from like Porzingis?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, but
He hasn't
He's
been
young, is what
he's
you're
young.
saying.
Exactly.
What
He's
you're
young, and he's been the last 3 years have been a little strange for him.
Sure.
It's been the transition of Melo and him being the management. KP has been injured as well. We have to see what's going to happen after this year. I'm not ready to give it all to KP, but I'm willing to bet that he's going to step into the role as a leader and as the franchise player.
and that's to say that there's only going to be one leader. You need
multiple. Absolutely.
You can't just have one. You know what I'm saying? In today's day and age, like everybody that's on that court has to be willing to step up to whatever their role is and lead in whatever their role is.
Yes.
And KP, I think he's willing to step into that role. KD has a big question mark.
He can. I mean, I think
In terms of being a leader.
as a leader, yes.
He's a role player for sure.
I think that it's funny. This was one of my favorite quotes from our Lost, we'll call it the Lost podcast here. You talk about that winning cures everything, and I think that is the biggest thing you can look at. Like, if this team adds Kevin Durant and maybe, like, at best, like a Kyrie Irving, a Jimmy Butler, or even another guy, whether it be like a Chris Middleton or whoever wants
Black
you.
Flash, like forget it all, or you're winning.
This team, all of a sudden, they're the number one or at least a game or two back from the Celtics in the East, and they're going to the conference finals. I feel like that's going to cure a lot of things.
I mean, fans have short memories.
This is true. And once we're winning,
And he's the best player in the East if he joins.
he would be.
He would be. Absolutely.
Easily.
You can't deny the
You
man's
would.
talent.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
That's
matters.
not up for debate here. We're
That
not
matters.
debating.
Look
we're
at
not
how many
debating
times
talent.
LeBron James went to the NBA Finals. What was it, 8 consecutive seasons? I mean, he's head and shoulders above the rest of the talent, assuming that Kawhi isn't healthy.
This might be a good time to bring up, the looming figure, which really hasn't, who I don't think even into public debate he's really entered. Mm-hmm. Where you say Kevin Durant is easily the best player in the East. The other candidate who I would bring up is Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
Look at that transition.
Right, okay.
Nice segue. Come on, Dylan.
Oh, it's clean.
Anyway, Kawhi Leonard, I think most of us would agree that in his best year, with the year he was, the last year he was healthy, he was at least at the level of Kevin Durant.
Absolutely.
He was in that,
very effective.
He was in that tier very
lethal.
much.
He was lethal.
And he has some of the same. It's crazy saying this about Kawhi, considering what his reputation used to be, but he has some of the same character concerns that you have with Durant. Do you think?
If not,
Do you think? Okay, well, both of these players. Kawhi, he would have to decide that for some reason the Knicks are a better option than the Raptors, and the Raptors are in a pretty good place right now.
They are.
They have.
But they're also in Canada.
Are they really?
They have a strong supporting cast.
Are they? They're like they have Kyle Lowry, who's like 31, and some.
But they also
young
got
guys.
Danny Green in the
But
trade.
they have Danny Green in the trade, like Jazz just said, and they've been in playoff contention. That alone puts them in a different tier than the Knicks, even at this point.
Okay, well, I will say, and I don't know how much we can believe Kawhi's uncle, but from all the information we've heard, a part of what he values leaving San Antonio is he wants to be more of a real pop culture figure. He wants to be.
Oh God, that scares me.
He wants to have. Okay, no, but I think that. But if you're into Kyrie, I think Kyrie, that's a big concern for him as well. To be honest, is Kawhi starring in Uncle Drew? Is he in a Pepsi commercial and then turning that into?
But can he handle that though?
Right.
But can he even handle
Kyrie's
that?
competitive though. Kawhi, it's like you are on one of the premier, like whether or not.
Well,
maybe not last year, but San Antonio is still perennially a team that made the playoffs for 15 years, and he chose to leave that organization with arguably the best coach in the league to go search for a place with a big source of media. And Kyrie wanted to go to a team that is good.
Why did he want to leave San Antonio so badly?
Because he wanted to go to a bigger market.
I don't think it was that simple. I think there was a lot of mistrust.
I think it totally was.
No, I think it was a lot of mistrust within the league. Within his team, the coaching staff, the training staff. I think it was way deeper than just a market.
They might have misdiagnosed an injury.
But let's not say that lightly, Matt.
I mean, that's pretty huge for
an
NBA player.
It also, there's a part of me that wonders how serious that injury was, because a lot of times there's 50% of it is mental. So it might have been that the team was clearing him and he just felt that he wasn't ready.
Okay, so let's just
this is getting pretty
most players want to be on the court playing. And if they don't feel like their injury is super serious, they're going to be out there playing every night. For Kawhi Leonard to say, I don't trust this opinion of this medical staff.
Yeah.
There's a problem.
There's something going on.
There's a problem. There's something deeper than just the market there. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not here to say, Kawhi made this up in his head or made it a bigger thing, or that, it was just more so he didn't want to be there. There's just obviously more to it than just it being a market issue with Kawhi Leonard. It's way more compact than that.
And that's a little concerning, though, if you want to talk about what he would do on the Knicks and if we want him on the Knicks, because, I mean, the question is, is it, like Matt said, was it more of a mental thing, or was it actually, that his body was not ready?
Right.
And so, do we want that? Do we want that on the Knicks?
And the issue is that I don't know if we'll ever get a clear answer. Like, one is that the team essentially made a huge mistake, and then the other one is that that Kawhi has something going on with how he perceives himself or how impressionable he is to the people around him. And we're probably never going to get an answer. So that's tough for the Knicks to figure out, which might be why you want to stay away.
Exactly. We don't need anything too complicated.
I'm staying away from Kawhi Leonard. I'm just going to go on the record.
I would say with the status of his knee, we will get a clear, we will get a lot of data on that, because he's going to play the whole season before we have to make any decision.
This is true.
This is true.
We will have this conversation will be completely different by the end of the year.
Absolutely.
I do think, to criticize Kawhi Leonard for leaving a winning situation, what other player could we apply that to? Kyrie Irving. Honestly, more so.
But we understand why. Exactly.
You know who was on his list was the San Antonio Spurs. Of teams that he wanted to go to was like Miami, the Spurs,
the Knicks.
The Knicks, because he's from there. I think the Celtics might have been on there. It's like a bunch of teams.
There were 4 teams. He had 4 teams that he listed.
And the Knicks.
Can't forget the Knicks.
Obviously.
I think granted, since the Knicks don't have a winning record and we haven't for seasons, anybody that's going to come to the Knicks is because they want to be in New York. They have a dream of playing in Madison Square Garden. It's Madison Square Garden. And so, if any big name free agent that comes here is because they're fulfilling a dream that they've had, in themselves, to say, no, I want to play the big ball, and big ball is at Madison Square Garden. That's it.
It seems like we can go on and on and on. We've talked about a lot of the elite players in next year's free agent class. There's many other players that I know that we all want to touch on. Perhaps we can save that for a future episode. Maybe a little Thad Young.
Al-Farouq Aminu.
Chris Middleton, you name it.
Thabo Sefolosha.
There are a lot of guys we could talk about. We're going to save that for a little bit closer when we get to that summer that I think we're all waiting for. So with that, we just want to close out. We want to thank you guys for watching. Please tune in next week for our next episode of Roundtable Discussions. And as always, follow us on all of our social media channels. And thank you for watching. Peace.